Our guest today is an actress and television personality who's been entertaining us for over 60 years. She's best known for her role as Marie Slaughter, wife of Murray Slaughter on The Mary Tyler Moore Show, and for her regular appearances on TV game shows like Match Game, and all of those guest spots on television programs like The Virginian, Perry Mason, The Real McCoys, The Naked City, Gunsmoke, McHale's Navy, Love American Style, Dr. Kildare. You know, if I read this entire list, Joyce, we'd be here until next Tuesday.
Oh my, well then don't do that.
All right. Yeah. Well, just by way of introduction, let's welcome Joyce Bulifant to the show.
Well, thank you so much.
Well, we're happy to have you. And before all of that TV work I mentioned, you actually began your career on the stage. Is that right?
Oh, yes. I love doing theater. I started out in summer stock. I love theater because I love connecting with the audience. But that also is possible when you do a three-camera, what they call three cameras, really four-camera show, and you do a live show that you can have the same feeling. I love that. The Mary Tyler Moore Show was like that. And another show I did called The Flow Show.
Yes.
That's the best way to work.
Well, we'll get to the Mary Tyler Moore Show in just a bit, but I want to go back to your very early days in television before you were doing a three-camera show. And on programs like GE Theater, that was an anthology show with different stars every week, and you had a very famous co-star on an episode of GE Theater.
Yes, and with Fred Astaire. Can you imagine how exciting that was?
You must have thought, well, this is it. I've made it.
Well, it was a dream come true. I just couldn't believe when my agent called me. I was on the set of the Perry Mason show, and he called and said, how would you like to do a show with Fred Astaire? I said, listen, I got to get back to the set. What did you want? He said, you don't want to do a show with Fred Astaire? I said, are you, wait a minute, are you serious? He said, yeah, and you get to dance with him. I said, oh, come on, you've got to be kidding. And he said, no. And he said, I take that as a yes, you'd like to. I said, of course it's a yes. And then when it came time to dance, you know, I thought I was going to be lifted in the air, and it was going to be this beautiful chiffon gown. I did have a chiffon gown, actually, but the dance we did was the twist. And he didn't know how to do it. And right before the scene, he said, would you teach me how to do the twist? I don't know how to do that. And I said, oh, Mr. Stair, you want me to teach you a dance? I said, oh, my God. He said, yes, you better hurry up because we're going to be doing it in a few minutes. And so I taught Fred Astaire how to do the twist.
Well, you know what? You might be the very first person who worked
Fred Astaire.
Right.
I think you're right.
You could put on your resume choreographer for Fred Astaire.
Yes, or Ripley's Believe It or Not. You know?
We're chatting with actress Joyce Bulifant today on the Vintage Rock and Pop Shop, and I wanted to take you back to one of your first television roles. It was on an NBC show called Too Young to Go Steady. Do you remember that?
Oh, my goodness. Oh, my goodness. That was... Do you remember an actress, Tuesday Wells?
Of course, Tuesday Wells, sure.
Oh, I mean, the most beautiful woman. And I played her best friend. And also, I mean, this is really a long time ago, Donna Michi and
yes.
Polly Rolls. They were her parents, and I was her best friend. And Davis Susskind was the director. And I had only done theater work, so when it came time for me to say my lines, I was projecting to the balcony. And Mr. Susskind said, excuse me, Joyce, what are you doing? I said, I'm sorry. He said, you're screaming. I said, well, and he said, look above you. That's the mic right there. I said, oh, dear. So I had a lot to learn about the difference of being on stage and using film.
By the way, are you from this area, the New York City area?
No, that's a very long story. I was born in Virginia, Newport News, Virginia.
Okay.
And I lived all up and down the East Coast and moved quite frequently. And I think as an older person, I'm still moving quite frequently. It just means that it's in my blood or something.
Yeah. The reason I ask is for someone who lived up and down the East Coast, you're pretty good on a horse. I've seen you in a lot of Westerns. I mean, you did Bonanza and Gunsmoke, The Virginian, Lancer, Wagon Train, Destry Rides Again.
Well, I love doing those. I love doing Westerns. And I was from the East Coast, but I did learn to ride one summer in camp, thank heavens. But I tell you, those horses are amazing. They know how to hit their mark much better than I did. I just kept riding along, and they come to a halt right when they were supposed to. They were great.
Now, when you were cast in the Mary Tyler Moore Show, doing that program in front of a live studio audience must have been like returning to your stage roots, right?
Oh, we did a show week. We did it just like a mini play.
Mm-hmm.
We did a table reading the first day, and then the next day you would do you block the scenes, and the next day you would do the cameras blocking, and then you do run-throughs, and you do 2 shows usually, and that way they could have the best of both shows to choose from.
And what I've heard, and I don't know if it's true, you would be the one to tell me, is that pretty much everybody got along on that set.
Oh, yes. It was wonderful. People really did. Everyone enjoyed everyone. And what was great is Mary let people do what they knew how to do the best.
And to this day, you're still friendly with Gavin MacLeod, is that correct?
We just had New Year's Day together. I had a party at my house, and he was here, and he was singing.
Well, maybe you two should have gotten married in real life.
I don't think Patty'd like hearing that, no.
Well, so I'll tell you what, we'll play a song, then we'll come back and we'll chat some more with actress Joyce Bulifant after Nat King Cole singing Too Young to Go Steady.
WFDU FM.
Get ready to match the stars. Orson Bean, Brett Summers, Charles Nelson Riley, Pat Finley, Richard Dawson, and Joyce Bulifant as we play the star-studded Big Money Match Game 75. And now here's the star of Match Game 75, Gene Rayburn.
When I was watching you and the rest of your celebrity co-contestants on Match Game, I was a youngster, so quite a bit of what was being said on the show was going over my head.
I hope so.
Yeah. So it's only now when I see it that I realize this is a wild show. It might be the wildest and most risque show of the 1970s.
Well, it's funny, and I said things not to be funny just because I can't spell. I'm dyslexic. And so I would have to make up things I could spell because you had to take that Dadgum Card and hold it up for everybody to see. And I was so embarrassed that I couldn't spell that I would make up things that were sort of right, but not quite right.
Did they give you any hints or anything like that before? I'm not saying it's scripted, but no, they didn't give you anything?
Not at all. It wasn't like Hollywood Squares or a lot of the other shows. It wasn't scripted at all,
so
which made it more fun and more spontaneous.
Let's see. I gotta talk to you.
So let's talk a little bit about your book, My Four Hollywood Husbands. How did this come to be that you decided to sit down and chronicle your life this way? Yeah,
and I wrote it. It was not ghosted or anything. The only thing I had help with was editing because it was 700 and some pages. I think I have a second book there. Actually, I am working on a second book, but it's a more serious subject. Although my life was pretty serious at times. It came about because everybody said, "You've got to write your story. Your life is so interesting." And I said, "It is?" And they said, "Yeah, it is." And so I started writing it. And at that time, remember I said I lived in so many homes?
Right.
When I was 50, I sat down at the dining room table, and I tried to figure out how many homes I lived in. I had pretty good recall. And I had lived in about 50 homes in 50 years.
Wow.
And I'm a little older now, and I think I've lived in a lot more homes. And there's always a reason. So I don't know what it is, but there were reasons each time. It wasn't just sort of, oh, I'm going to move now. It's interesting. It's interesting to me. And the name of the book was going to be Home Sweet Home, Where Is It? And then a friend of mine called one day and said, "Joyce, I have the title for your book." And I said, "What?" And he told me, I said, "That's disgusting. I would never title my book that. No, that's so tacky." And then a couple of weeks went by, and I thought, yeah, but it might sell books. So it took a whole different angle and ended up being, what makes me happy about it is it seems to be helping a lot of people. And that's what I hoped it would happen. And it's because it's a lot about alcoholism and codependency.
Right.
And I'm very codependent and still trying not to be. And how that can be hurtful and how you can move on. And then interwoven in that, in the story, is Rogers and my love story, which I love.
Yeah. Well, I would also say that considering you've lived in 50 different homes,
Yes.
that you probably have a decorating book inside you as well, I would think.
Well, that too, and that I had a decorating job that fell into my lap, and I always tell young actors, have something else you can do besides act,
Right.
if you're in the arts. And it just so happened that decorating fell right into my lap, and I enjoyed doing it, and I loved doing it when I was doing it for other people. But I found that a great. You're really creating something, and I love it. It's really fun.
Well, it certainly sounds it. And again, I want to point people to your website, which is joycebulifant.com, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And they can get the book there. And
they can get it there or on Amazon.com. I've been told by a friend who helps me that it would be good for me to have a post office box so that people could write to me if they wanted a book and wanted it signed.
yes, that actually is a very, very good idea.
So I'm going to work on that. I didn't do it yet. But
I'll tell you what, it's the easiest thing in the world. It's about $45. You do it you do it every 6 months. It's simple.
oh, really? That's it?
That's it.
Okay.
Sure.
I can afford that. I can afford that.
Right. But I want to thank you so much for coming on and chatting with us today. And I hope you have a good time tonight at the theater. You're well rested.
I'm going to the theater, yes.
Yes.
Friends of mine are doing a play, and that'll be fun.
It sure will. Well, thank you so much. You have a great rest of your day.
Alrighty. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.